In February 2026, India and the United States announced an interim trade framework that reduced American reciprocal tariffs on Indian goods from 50% to 18%. The headline invited relief. The fine print demands scrutiny. India intends to procure $500 billion in American goods over 5 years. Energy, aircraft, semiconductors, coking coal, and technology products. To contextualize, total US-India goods and services trade stood at $212.3 billion in 2024. Bilateral goods trade reached a record of roughly $149.4 billion in fiscal year 25. India's goods exports to the US were $86.5 billion in fiscal year 25, against imports of $45.3 billion, a surplus of $40.8 billion. The $500 billion commitment, annualized at $100 billion, implies India roughly doubling its annual imports from the US within the agreement period. This is not incremental, it is structural. The composition matters. Pharmaceuticals, semiconductors, and critical minerals remain tariff-exempt under the framework. Textiles, leather, chemicals, and machinery bear the 18% rate. India secured Section 232 exemptions on aircraft parts and a tariff rate quota on auto components. Generic medicines received negotiated terms. The architecture protects India's high-value export corridors, while opening its market to American industrial goods and agricultural products, including nuts, soybean oil, and spirits. What should institutional capital read into this? 3 things. First, energy reconfiguration. India imports 85% of its crude oil. The interim deal's strategic incentive structure, aimed at shifting sourcing away from Russian crude toward American supply, is not merely a trade concession. It represents a geopolitical realignment with direct implications for refining margins, shipping routes, and currency hedging. India's refining capacity stands at approximately 258 million tons per annum. The question is whether American crude, priced on WTI benchmarks, can compete on delivered cost against Urals-grade barrels that Indian refiners have optimized for since 2022. Second, the import substitution paradox. India's flagship Atmanirbhar Bharat, or Self-Reliant India, program aims to reduce import dependence in defense, electronics, and manufacturing. The $500 billion commitment runs in the opposite direction. It locks in import volumes across technology and energy for half a decade. The Centre for Policy Research, or CPR, has noted this tension. Sovereign industrial policy and alliance procurement commitments create competing fiscal claims. The resolution likely lies in value chain disaggregation, importing American equipment and IP while building domestic assembly and integration capacity. This is the model ISM 2.0 is designed around. Third, the fiscal absorption question. India's current account deficit was 1.1% of GDP in FY25. An incremental $50 to $55 billion in annual imports from a single partner would widen this deficit materially unless offset by export growth or capital inflows. FDI equity inflows reached $47.9 billion in April to December FY26, up 22% year-on-year. The US accounts for 10% of cumulative FDI equity inflows into India since $2,078.5 billion against $776.8 billion total. Whether the trade deal catalyzes a proportionate FDI acceleration into Indian manufacturing remains the critical variable for balance of payment sustainability. India's negotiating posture tells its own story. Commerce Minister Piyush Goyal emphasized that India already imports nearly $300 billion annually in sectors where the US is globally competitive: energy, aircraft engines, semiconductors, and critical minerals. The deal, in New Delhi's framing, formalizes existing demand rather than creating new dependency. The European FTA negotiations, running in parallel, signal that India views diversification, not exclusivity, as the durable strategy. For allocators sizing India exposure, the $500 billion number is less important than the institutional plumbing being built beneath it. Bilateral investment treaties under negotiation with over a dozen countries, a critical minerals agreement near finalization, and customs duty exemptions on raw materials for defense manufacturing announced in the Union budget. The question India is asking itself is not whether $500 billion is achievable, it is whether the terms of integration preserve enough policy space to build sovereign capability simultaneously. That is the tension every long-term investor in India must price.